We
All
are
right,
live.
Spencer. Thank you for stopping by. And do you want to, introduce yourself?
Yeah, let's do that. My name's Spencer. I'm from Arizona. I like long walk. No, I'm just playing. I have lived in the East Valley, Chandler, Mesa, for the last 5 years. I'm a big baseball junkie.
Let's go.
You know, repping AZ today,
Are
World
you back?
Series,
Let's
Game
go.
1, baby. Yeah, man. I've got three siblings. My parents aren't together. They're both here in Arizona. My siblings are North Carolina, San Diego, and Chicago. Yeah, man. I'm passionate about my recovery right now, and I'm just learning a whole hell of a lot, man. So
Right.
this is cool to do this, man.
Yeah, that's good, man. And I've met you in the rooms before, and we used to live together, right? And so I've heard a little bit about your story. And do you want to kind of tell us, a little bit of how bad it got out there,
Yeah,
due to your addiction or your alcoholism?
yeah, absolutely, man. Um, Man, it got bad, and I don't necessarily like to because I've been suggested to not talk about how bad it got. So I
Right.
like to
Just
let you know some circumstances, and also, but more importantly, let you know about the mental the mental places, the emotional places that addiction brought me. I got into recovery when I was 22. I probably needed to be in it before that.
right.
But what pushed me to it was my first seizure coming off of drugs and alcohol, man. And so I was 22, and I went to my first treatment. From 22 to 30 to 32, you could say, it was an up and down thing. And when I say up and down, I mean every year I was getting sober and I was crashing. Year in, year out. Like I'm the type of addict or alcoholic that doesn't last for like year long runs.
Right.
Like I literally end up in jail. Things start shutting down. I end up in the hospital. So every year, man, I would feel strong. I'd feel good about recovery, man, and I've learned a lot from why I crashed every single time. I learned a whole hell of a lot, man. I mean, back to your question, how bad it got, man. The essence of it was I just could not stop, no matter how bad I wanted to,
Right.
and I was getting loaded, obviously in a sober place of mind, or in a sober state, when I didn't want to get loaded. All these relapses, man. If I really look at them objectively or from an outsider's point of view, I struggled with living life sober, man. And I always struggled with living a life that I never thought I was going to live, right?
Right.
When I grew up, I did not want to be an alcoholic. I didn't want to really be in recovery. Of course, like who did, right?
Right.
And so drowning myself in substances over and over again because I wasn't where I wanted to be in life, that just kept the cycle going, man. I mean, I had definitely a lot of bursts of homelessness, sleeping behind buildings, sleeping behind a dumpster, for months at a time too. Like, homelessness was something that, I got used to. And a lot of the times, man, I was hospital hopping, getting into hospitals if I could to get off the streets and going from one to another. I've been to all the hospitals, and that was in like my mid-20s. And the arrests,
Right.
lost over 20 of them since I was 15. You know, there's just what probably comes to mind first of how bad it got was man, I don't, I just couldn't stop when I wanted to stop. My
Right.
solution was drugs and alcohol,
Mm.
and I wasn't getting anywhere, man. I've I've been homeless. I've been the guy asking you for change at the gas station. I've been at a place where my setup behind a dumpster felt like the Ritz-Carlton compared to where I had been living the week prior.
Right.
You know, my expectations and my standards for life were really low. But, you know, most of all, man, I had lost everything. And when I say everything, yeah, from every coin or every cent in my bank account to every piece of clothing, except for what I had on. Everything, the relationships were crashed and burned, man. And my own self, like dignity, my own self-respect was just gone multiple times. And that's what I really remember. I remember vividly walking around, you know, on the sidewalks and the streets and just being like, you know, I'm used to getting out of jail with nothing. I'm used to getting sober with nothing because I've just burned it down to the ground. But when you lose this dignity and the self-respect to your core, it's like, damn. I got to do something about this, but I don't know where to start.
No, that's good, man, and thank you for sharing that, and thanks for getting vulnerable, you know, and so we'll steer the direction, right, is how was your experience with the 12 steps, right? You could talk about how this experience was or last, you know, I don't know how many times you've gone through the steps, but just your overall experience with the 12 steps and how you obtained that spiritual experience, or how you obtained, how you got into a state of being recovered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good question, man. I feel like my experience is really common out there. You can't tell someone to take the steps like it's their life raft and they're going to drown if they can't. You can't tell someone to have this sense of urgency or just this willingness to do the steps.
Right.
For me, like I didn't necessarily believe that they would save my life for years, and so that correlated into not giving them you know, the sense of urgency or like the level of importance that they needed.
Right.
So, you know, like in my early 20s and mid 20s, I did a fourth and fifth step. I did multiple fourth and fifth steps. Towards the later part of my 20s, you know, I was doing amends.
Right.
But I never got to the 12th step. I never started sponsoring guys. And really, I think more than anything, if I look back, man, I didn't really understand the extent of my disease and the extent of the powerlessness of what I was dealing with, man. I did not think that a higher power or being in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous was going to be my solution.
Right.
So there were some sticking points there with that step too, man. And I certainly wasn't giving my will over, you know, to God, man. And that's been a learning process. I still try and articulate that and analyze that all the time. And that's just been a cool deal. But lately, so the past over a year and a half, I rely on the steps, and there's so much within the steps that includes daily maintenance. You know, it's not like you do the steps, you're sponsoring guys, and as you're sponsoring guys, you were done with the steps. Like, there's still so much, you know, a daily third step. I still have to check myself on like the second step and like, what am I really relying on here?
Right, yeah.
Do I really believe that like I'll be okay relying on God? And is that real reliance there, that real dependence there? So yeah, man, there's been a couple times in my life, this is the most recent one, where I was like, I'm just going to do the steps because this is what's been working for people.
Right.
And it's not something I necessarily believed in or wanted to do, but I did them. That first time I did them, I just never started sponsoring guys. It was still all about me.
Right.
And of course, like, we know how that ended. This last time, man, I worked them and I sat with them, and I've learned more about my powerlessness more than ever before. I've learned that, like, and I had to realize when I was in rehab again, I had the realization that I was going to be back in rehab.
Right.
Like, if something didn't change within me, and all I could see was that spirituality and Alcoholics Anonymous had to be like the core, the center of my life.
Right.
The steps have been an incredible process. 10, 11, and 12 have changed my life. And more importantly, man, with my story, my ups and downs, I could tell you certainly what doesn't work,
Right.
but I think that's my biggest asset now. And so when I sponsor guys, like my passion is the guy that's been in and out, that's wanted it for so long.
Right.
So the 12 steps has gave me, especially sponsoring guys and doing H&Is, has gave me like a sense of purpose. It's been a choice for me to use my alcoholism and my addiction struggles as something that can help others and something that I was going to use to help others,
Right.
rather than shutting the door on it and hoping things would just get better and I could write that off as like a bad decade plus.
Right.
Now I've really accepted that I'm gonna do my best to kind of use this to better myself and others.
Right.
And that's been big game changer for sure.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and you pointed something out. You pointed something out that really stuck out to me, and it was how like you have all of these blessings in your life now, right? Because some people have a misconception of the steps where they think that the only thing that you can achieve by gaining a spiritual experience through the 12 steps is just getting sober from drugs and alcohol and just getting rid of the mental obsession. So I wanted to see, right, like, how does your life look like today? What are the blessings in your life, right? And if you want to kind of get into the struggles as well, right, because life doesn't necessarily just change just because you get sober,
Yeah.
And so, right, and that's something that I try to emphasize to everyone is that, like, I'd be downplaying the 12 steps if I said that the only thing that it's done for me was to remove the mental obsession and not think about drugs or alcohol, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great question, man. And I've learned that what you ended with, my obsession or me thinking about drugs and alcohol, just because I've worked the steps or I'm sponsoring guys, isn't always lifted. Like I have to stay in 10, 11, and 12. I've got to check myself on like a third step for this thing to stay lifted. I've had multiple times in my sobriety when I've thought about it, right? And it's taught me that, like, first off, I'm normal. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. I'm going to think about these things sometimes. Right. A craving isn't an absurd thing for an alcoholic to have. But I've just really learned about these maintenance steps, man, and staying in action for that obsession and for that proper like perception to be there. I don't know, man. There's been so many blessings that have come my way. I mean, the whole God does for me what I could not do for myself is such a reality. Right off the bat, man, I've been able to rebuild relationships with my family. I've been able to like grow new relationships. You're one of them, man, and that's been a game changer, man. I think the core of Alcoholics Anonymous is about relying on God or a higher power, but it's also this fellowship in this community, right, and being selfless. The community and the fellowship have changed my life, man, and talk about a blessing for me to be able to bounce things off of, whether it be you or a handful of other guys, and get brutally honest with them, and then get their feedback. And usually it's a reassurance that I'm human and that what I'm thinking about or struggling with is totally normal. Right. That's a blessing, man. Alcoholics Anonymous, man. Like, I have normies in my life, man, but I feel so lucky because I'm so connected with so many people that, like, I'm not just living this life deal by myself, like, right, at all. Like, I'm far from that. Yeah. I'm so like connected with so many different guys. Like, they know what's going on. I'm a part of their lives. They're a part of mine. And we are just like trudging this journey together. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I've learned a lot about that. A big game changer for me was realizing that other people, there is a huge follow the leader aspect for sure. Right. But everyone is trudging this thing together. And like, just because you've got a few years and I don't have that much time, this guy's got 10, I've got 2 or whatever, doesn't mean that we're always behind the other person. And I think that is super important for for a newcomer or a new guy to know and to hear is that you're not behind me, dude, just because you've got less time. Like, we do this shit together. And, because it's a tough spot to always feel like you're behind.
Right.
And it's an easier way for you to self-sabotage and start over when you always feel like, shit, I'm the guy with 3 to 6, and you can even feel that way with a year, you know? And I think that was a big blessing for me to hear that from a good friend of mine, that we see each other at eye level. No one's in front of one another. No one's behind.
Right.
We trudge together, man. And that was a big thing for me to hear and really embrace. I've got a dog. I just got a German Shepherd puppy like 2 months ago. She's been a blessing. You know, I teach a kid baseball lessons, you know, hitting lessons weekly. And I have a great career, great job. But if you were to tell me when I'm living outside watching society do their thing and I'm living behind a fucking building and I can't get out of it, that I would end up doing baseball lessons and I would end up trying to at least make an impact at H&I's and sponsoring guys, like that would be all I would want. Right. You know, and I want to have a family, I want to have a kid and a wife and whatnot, but right now, man, like utilizing my journey to help others and being able to like enjoy my passions like baseball and whatnot is just such a cool deal, man. It's such a cool deal. It literally for a while was like the impossible. Right. I started to really kind of believe like I might die or that might just never happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Shit, man. So.
And yeah, that's a very good point, man, because it's like that first year, it's like I'm just trying to get sober. That's how it was for me. You know, that first year, I'm just trying to go to meetings, and I was telling Megan last night about that, right? Like that first year, I'm just trying to stay sober and maintain sobriety. Yeah. You know, so I'm going to meetings, I'm doing a bunch of H&Is, right? Like I'm basically living in the program, and then after like a year, my life just started getting full. You know, and I wasn't really able. I didn't really have the time to go hit 5 meetings a week. I didn't have the time to do like 2 H&Is a week and sponsor like 3 or 4 people at a time, you know, due to my life getting so full with like family and enjoying life, you know, and so that's what the program is, right? I do, and I heard some guy say this, right, and it's said a lot, right, and it's I do the 12-step, like the 12 steps aren't my life, but I do the 12 steps in order to have a life, right? And so that's really good that you brought that up, man. And so we'll lean into like, man, what are some of your struggles, right? Like what, right? Because obviously we're not perfect. Yeah. Like we're far from perfect. So like, you know, what are you struggling with today? Whether it be like spiritually, mentally, and you know, just kind of those things.
Yeah, good question. I'm sitting in the middle of it, you know, right now, and definitely lately, where my story in the last 13 years has been a lot of picking myself up and crashing things to the ground. Right. And so I'm almost wired, or I'm really used to failing, so to speak, at living life sober. My biggest struggle today has been a spiritual and a mental challenge for me to not go into this sabotage type thinking, for me to work on believing that I can live a healthy, healthy life full of joy, well, as full as it can be. So I don't know, man. You got this fear of success, you got this fear of failure. Right. Sometimes I believe there is some things to look into the fear of success, but sometimes I think it's all just about a fear of failure. Right. And that's what I'm struggling the most today. What's helped me has been brutally honest with these thoughts of, you know, and what's also helped me has been leaning into prayer and meditation. You know, I don't always instinctively go to prayer and meditation, but when I do, and I always get told to by the guys that love me, man, and it always changes my life. Like I've learned a lot about, it's not about doing. although it's so important to take actions in recovery, you also really got to work on being.
Right.
And I don't really like to look at it this way, but I have a lot of growth or a lot of maturing to do, I think, in spirituality. I try not to compare mine to other people's,
Right.
but I really feel like it can get a lot stronger from where I'm at right now, and it's something I rely on, man. So yeah, just kind of believing in, dude. Honestly, all of my shit that I go through mentally, all these doubts and fears and whatnot, it's all about shit in the future. It's all about shit that hasn't happened yet. You know what I mean? Like, if I can't grasp being sober for the rest of my life, and that comes with, I'm going to fuck up, I'm going to, yada, yada, yada. Well, reel it back into today, and I can grasp that. Like, if I continue to do the things that I've been doing, and if I just take care of what's in front of me, like look at where my feet are in today and work on today, I'm pretty fucking secure in that thought.
Right.
But it's the future tripping that gets me all spun out, you know?
Yep.
So my ups and downs is my biggest asset I believe in to help others, but it's it's a double-edged sword. It can also play some bullshit into me,
Right.
Doubting living a good, prosperous life.
Right. Yep. Man, and that's really relatable, man. I know that I struggle with the same thing as well, man. And you brought up a lot of good struggles. So one last thing, man, and we'll kind of end with this is what is one thing that somebody might have said, or a quote or a saying that you heard that has helped you in recovery, right? Like, what's the best advice that you've received while sober?
I'm an open book with a lot of people, and they give me a lot of great advice, man.
Right.
The best thing, and the thing that I'm so eternally grateful for, is my sponsor and other guys pushing me towards God,
Right.
pushing me towards prayer and meditation, pushing me towards that relationship, rather than giving some specific advice or direction. I can't tell you, my sponsor now has been with me, I don't know how or why, for years. But the best thing that I think he's ever done for me is to push me towards God, because it wasn't on the top of my list, that relationship, for a long time. It just wasn't, subconsciously, I guess.
Right.
Not really on purpose. And he's always pushed me to the book, what the book says, and to God, man. And that's created the foundation, the strength that I now have. That personal type deal with God it's because he's pushed me towards it. And a lot of times I'm like, dude, can't you just tell me some philosophical, awesome wisdom advice? And
Right.
he gives me a lot of great direction, man. And a lot of my guys, like you, and a lot of guys that are in my close circle, give me a lot of suggestion. But a lot of the times it's dude, I get it. I do that shit too.
Right.
Like, I've had those fears too.
Right.
I've had those thoughts too. I have those struggles too. So kind of, feeling like I'm not the only one doing some things has been really powerful. But yeah, man, to answer your question specifically, it's hands down being pushed towards reliance and dependence on my higher power.
Thank you, bro. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming out, man, and
Thanks,
thank you
E.
for doing this with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you.
Hell yeah. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Let's
Boom. Yeah, boy.